All right. Okay, so whew, week 7. And week 7 is, if you have gotten, which I'm suspecting you have because you're here watching this, through day 16, where I allowed you to do it after the Dev 1. And maybe you start to see why, is because we're making a major shift here in week 7 to writing code that is built on the different paradigm. And what I want you to keep in mind as you work through this week is that what you're learning to use first with the quiz program, that is a great example. This is day 17 of what you would be doing when you're doing your last dev. Okay. So I've been thinking about this, and this is the point where, because I'm working on week 8 and looking at the rest of the content, and I'm thinking about how to articulate or how to write the requirements for our last dev. Because there's a couple of really important things you're learning this week. You're learning first in day 17, as I've already mentioned, for how to write OOP code in the quiz. And then, and let's just actually kind of turn to it because I think it's worth just looking a little bit here, right? So if I look at this and I look at the quiz, which again I think is a great example, and then on week 18, right, looking at what you're doing here with the Hearst example, we get introduced to the turtle, right? The idea of how to use turtle, which we've already been introduced to, but this you really start to take it. So here's the point I guess I'm trying to make somewhere here is that in learning turtle, you're really learning how to use somebody else's OOP setup, somebody else's library, somebody else's package, right? So keep that in mind as you're learning how to code turtle applications. First, it's really fun because it's graphical, and that's always cool. Uh, right. And then in day 19, where we do take that even further and end with the race, doing the turtle race and understanding the coordinate system. um, then I have you in the learn together for week 17. Not a big surprise after you do day 19 is actually take the turtle race and take it to a add features, because there's so much you could do to it, which is what she talks about in day 19. But again, I want to come around to this concept of think about why we're learning Turtle is not just because graphics is so much more fun than command line. No user will ever use our command line apps. I guarantee it. I should put a little caveat, unless they're system administrators or somebody else that knows how to run command line code. Okay, they may, but your general user population will never. So learning how to write graphical code is really fun and really much more usable in the real world. Now, we could talk about if people will really use these graphical user interfaces from Python. And that's, but more than anything, I'm again thinking ahead to our last step. And here's what I'm thinking, right? Is like you take your dev 1 and you do, you write your dev 1 in OOP style and you put it in a graphical user interface would be the two big things at the end. I'm just wondering if that's too much. So I know we've at this point been introduced and you're going to get some more content this week. So, and look, I didn't move my mouse. So this is me just thinking out loud and really more than anything thinking about the timeline for our last dev, because that's the other thing is I needed to think about and just talk to you about for a minute here at this last one, right? So I'm setting, of course, in November 15th as your Dev 1 is heading all at us right now. But when I look ahead to the last Dev, which I have due on Thursday night, right? Like, because Dev 1, we had a little bit of time. I'm giving you, right? You turn it in here, you can submit it, not submit it, but you can come do a code review uh, that next week. Well, we can't do that with Dev 2. Okay. So I'm just kind of consider, because the other thing is we end with day 24, which is really learning about files and paths and how to code physical files, how to handle them. So I'm thinking, well, maybe we'll put that in, but I typically don't like to add things at the very last that you need to implement. I typically like to go there. Here are things I want you to know about, but not necessarily have to code for. So more than anything, I just want you to be thinking ahead. I love your feedback about any of this, because it's really where we're at. Like I've said, I've never had this class run in a 9-week mode, and I've never used this content, so it's kind of a how is it going, right? And what you're interested in doing, which I suspect most of us are interested in doing graphical user interfaces. Because, as an example, and let me just say this because maybe this will help contextualize this a little more. Like, I think about my app, and I think about, because what I'm asking for is user input, I'm storing that input, right? And then I'm summarizing that input. Well, could I use something like Turtle to do that? And the answer is yeah. Are there other graphical Python libraries that are more suited for that? And the answer is yeah. And when I taught this class last semester, we use Tkinter, which is kind of, and can be used in conjunction with Turtle, actually. And it is kind of like a part, or just like when you want to do more user interaction from more traditional app perspective, not necessarily games. Because that's the other thing, you might have a perception based especially on what we did this week, is like that Dev 2 has to be a game, and it totally doesn't. But everything that you're learning can be applied to a regular, and I've used this term once, so I'm going to use it again, CRUD app, right? Create, read, update, and delete, where you, as the user, right, and obviously as a developer, create, provide information, you create it to an app, it stores it, right? Adds the read, it updates it, gives you the ability to delete it. Well, all of those functions can be um, used on Turtle. They're just a little more quirky, right? Is what I'd say. So I'm thinking maybe what I'll do is that I think Dev 2 for me, sorry, Dev 2 for me will be taking my concept that I've been working on so far, all the things I did for Dev 1, and adding two major things, right? Adding the graphical user interface, right? And rewriting it in the OOP. But I'm also open, as we move closer to your, like, what it is that you want to get it. Because if you feel like, and it's okay if you do, if you feel like you just don't have enough towards, as we get past week 8, that you don't want to do OOP, then come talk to me, right? Because that's the key to something like this, is like, what is it that you want to learn, right? And how can we help incorporate what we've learned in this course in advancing your skill base? And the only way, frankly, I can do that is if you come talk to me. So the offer is always there. And I know it's a little more challenging during dev weeks because my schedule gets kind of full, but even that we can work around. So just to reiterate a couple things, this week, again, as a matter of fact, I just had a great conversation at this just a few moments ago with Jess out on Discord about, do I require you all to do the virtual environment? And here's what I want to say, and I said it, but I'll say it again because I think it's worth reiterating, because we have it again this week, I believe. Yeah. Actually, let's go look. Now that I've said that, let's actually go look. Commenting out the code. Well, maybe not. So maybe there isn't. That's in day 18. And day 19, I believe there's not as well. So maybe I'm wrong. So hang on. Let me check one more day here just to remind myself, because I do write in the instruction when that is a thing, right? That you can create that. Yeah. So there's not actually. But I guess then I would say that is pertinent to more of when you're writing your Dev 2, right? I've shown you at least the bare minimum, but I guess this maybe relates more to the week that you've already done, which is, are you required to do it when you're doing the Udemy work? And the answer is no. I just don't recommend installing packages globally on your system. That's just me. Security wise, I don't do it. Hey, we can ask me any questions about that. That you might have, like Jess did, which led to a really good conversation out there. So, but more than anything, right, make sure you're writing PEP 8 compliant from here on out. I always check. We're down to the amount of students where I get to pull each of your both your public and your private, depending on what work we're doing. So I pull that code, I bring it in my editor, I see if there's any PEP 8. So make sure, because once you start writing it, it kind of becomes second nature. But if you're not writing it, then it's going to hurt your grade. I'll take definitely some points off for that, because I want you to get in good practice of writing good code, right? Good, well formatted code. Okay, so I think that's it for this week. So my tasks now, right? So I've talked about the timing here. Um, I'll have only one additional day, so hopefully you're working ahead. Otherwise, that last day is a scramble to get all the code reviews done at the end of the semester. So, what do I want in this reply? Well, pretty much, did you hear me? Do you have any clarifying questions for kind of my approach right now to thinking about Dev 2 is mostly do a graphical, implement your Dev 1 and graphical uh, turtle or something else. It's really up to you. And write it in OOP style. That's going to be my general thoughts at this point, and I'm open to hearing feedback from you. All right, that's it. Have a great one, and I'll talk to you soon.